Penguin Random House Audio presents The Persistence of the Color Line, Racial Politics and the Obama Presidency by Randall Kennedy. Read for you by Cary, Hite. Introduction. The terms under which Barack Obama won the presidency, the conditions under which he governs, and the circumstances under which he seeks re-election all display the haunting persistence of the color line. Many prophesied or prayed that his election heralded a post-racial America. But everything about Obama is widely, insistently, almost unavoidably interpreted through the prism of race. His appearance, light-skinned. His demeanor, not an angry black man. His diction, articulate, no Negro dialect. His spouse, dark-skinned. The support he enjoys, anchored by blacks. The opposition he encounters, constituted overwhelmingly by whites. For Obama himself, the consciousness of race is ever present. It was evident on election night when he remarked on the miraculousness of an African American winning the White House. It was evident at the inauguration when he alluded to the fact that, during his father's lifetime, bigotry denied blacks service in Washington, D.C. restaurants. It was evident at the press conference of December 7, 2010, when defending hotly disputed tax legislation, he maintained the compromise was central to America, including the Founding Fathers' compromise with slavery, a bargain that some thoughtful observers have condemned as immoral. According to Obama, this country was founded on compromise. I couldn't go through the front door at this country's founding, and if we were really thinking about ideal positions, we wouldn't have a union. There was a time, now it seems long ago, when it appeared, momentarily, that America had taken a giant stride toward redemption. After all, the electorate selected Barack Hussein Obama, a black man, to be President of the United States. The hope, pride, relief, and astonishment generated by this unprecedented event provoked all sorts of optimistic declarations. People who had, in emotional self-defense, habitually eschewed patriotism now waved American flags enthusiastically. People who doubted that Americans would ever be able to overcome racial alienation now believed that they could. Expressions of exhilaration produced sounds and scenes reminiscent of reactions to such landmark events as the Emancipation Proclamation, Joe Louis's victory over Max Schmeling, the I Have a Dream speech of Martin Luther King Jr., and the landing on the moon. Parties erupted, featuring such anthems as Ain't No Stopping Us Now, A Change Is Gonna Come, and We're a Winner. Strangers danced and cried with one another. People named newborns after the president-elect. On the day after the election, one of my students at Harvard Law School tearfully declared that in light of Obama's election, she was reconsidering her career plans. His example, she said, made her want to be a better person. A few days later, I received a letter from an inmate of a maximum security prison in Indiana that said the same thing. On election night, one heard repeatedly echoes of Maya Angelou's statement, "I never thought I'd see a black president in the White House in my lifetime." Oprah Winfrey exclaimed that election night was the most electrifying moment she had ever experienced. People commonly remarked that they felt as if they were dreaming. The day after the election, on a listserv organized by racial minority law professors, a distinguished black jurist remarked, "When I woke up this morning, I said to my husband, I had the weirdest dream last night. I dreamed that a black man named Barack Hussein Obama became President of the United States. Is that weird or what?" Blacks were not the only ones feeling and expressing pent-up emotion. Responding to a column in which the black journalist Eugene Robinson explained why he wept on election night, numbers of white readers noted that they, too, had been moved to tears. In an open letter to a new neighbor, Washingtonian Betsy Karasik poured out her feelings of gratitude. "You proved that Americans are not nearly as narrow-minded as most of us believed, that speaking to us adult to adult about race trumps playing the race card, that sticking to the issues and taking the high road do not make you a sucker, that being an intellectual is not a liability, and that appealing to the best in people brings out the young, the old, the dissatisfied minorities, and even the opposition in record numbers. In newspapers and websites, people posted messages by the thousands, displaying ways in which Obama's victory deeply moved them. A reader of the Washington Post wrote, "We still have a long way to go to erase the sin of slavery and end racism. But maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of the end of race as a major issue. Today I can truly say, God bless America, and mean it." A reader of the New York Times stated that Obama's election does nothing less for me than heal my chronic young boyhood wound of November 22, 1963, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and also the wounds of Bobby and Martin, the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. in the spring of 1968. A reader of the website Jack and Jill Politics wrote, "This morning I woke up and realized that what I saw last night was not a dream. I realized I woke up in a new time, in a new era. I woke up in AB, after Barack." Euphoric statements made in the grip of the post-election high are painful and sometimes embarrassing to recall. Even seasoned observers were swept up by a delusionary millenarianism. Many racial Panglossians, however, have been sobered by realities. The substantial number of Americans who simply refuse to acknowledge Obama's political legitimacy. For example, the allegation believed by tens of millions that he was born abroad. The open contempt displayed by antagonists, not only on the airways of right-wing talk radio, but also in the inner sanctum of Congress. For example, Joe Wilson's infamous shout of, "You lie," and the stark polarization that characterizes the racial demographics of support for and opposition to Obama. That the opposition is overwhelmingly white is a fact that no one can reasonably dispute. Around the time of the midterm elections of November 2010, Obama's approval ratings among whites hovered around 37%. Among blacks, it stood at more than 90%. What is disputed, however, is that racial sentiment is an important ingredient in the opposition. "America has turned the page on race," wrote a correspondent for The Economist. "The electorate may be divided by race, but no longer mainly because of race." It is, of course, true that there are many potential non-racial reasons for rejecting Obama, including disagreement with his domestic politics, his stance on abortion, financial regulation, immigration, taxation, etc., foreign policy, his prosecution of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, for instance, and also objections to Obama himself. Even some who formerly supported him enthusiastically have subsequently voiced doubts about his mettle as a leader. Racial sentiments, moreover, are devilishly difficult to isolate and quantify in specific instances. In gross, however, the evidence is overwhelming that racial attitudes affect judgments pervasively, from the administration of justice to support or opposition to social welfare programs, to dating and the marriage market, to employment decisions. African Americans, for instance, are not only discriminated against in many settings, they are more discriminated against the blacker they are perceived to be. Against that backdrop, it is wholly implausible to think that racial attitudes would not significantly affect assessments of politicians. That Obama won the White House in 2008 does not mean that racial prejudice is no longer a potent force in American politics. The political scientists Michael Tesler and David O. Sears argue persuasively that the election of 2008 was anything but post-racial. Instead, the racial hopes and fear evoked by Obama's potential to become the country's first black president sharply divided racial conservatives from racial liberals. Public opinion and voting behavior were considerably more polarized by racial attitudes than at any other time on record. Racial attitudes, they conclude, are one of the most important determinants of how the American public responded. Racial liberals supported Obama more than they would have backed an ideologically similar white candidate, while racial conservatives opposed Obama more than they would have opposed an ideologically similar white candidate. Furthermore, there are some who voted for Obama in 2008 despite their disinclination to vote for a black candidate.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?